Have you ever thought of a simple letter of the alphabet as, I don't know, a tragic hero? It sounds totally bizarre, right? But today, we're diving into an explainer of some seriously fascinating source material about a letter that has been elevated, abused, silenced, and just completely misunderstood throughout human history. We are exploring the dramatic, chaotic, and truly fascinating linguistic drama of the eighth letter of our alphabet, the letter H.
So ask yourself this. Why on earth is the letter H the ultimate test of social class? For centuries, especially over in England, how you treated this single consonant was basically a ruthless social shibboleth. Take what Victorian writers dubbed the Cockney problem. It wasn't just that working-class Londoners were dropping their H's, it's that they were aggressively adding them where they absolutely did not belong. Imagine someone asking you for some Horkney oysters or a plate of 'am and heggs. I mean, it literally baffled the upper classes.
In fact, in a really fascinating 1880 treatise, an English military officer actually called the letter H, and I quote, "the greatest blessing in the world, a sure protection against cads." No way, right? By the 19th century, your ability to perfectly aspirate this one tiny, almost invisible breath of air was viewed as this foolproof indicator of your breeding, your education, basically your inherent worth as a person. If you tripped on your H's, society literally shut its doors to you. But how did a simple breath become so loaded with all this social anxiety? Well, let's step back in time to see where this controversial little letter actually came from.
Section 1. Ancient guttural glory, from courtyards to consonants.
Before it was a sound that could get you kicked out of high society, it was actually a picture. The physical shape of the letter H traces its roots all the way back to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. It originally represented something super tangible in the real world. Scholars trace it to either a drawing of a physical courtyard or a wick of twisted flax.
And we can trace this beautifully unbroken chronological evolution of its shape across ancient empires. Starting from that Egyptian courtyard, it morphed into the Semitic heth, and then the Phoenicians kind of squared it off with a central stroke. After that, the Greeks adopted it as eta, originally using it as a consonant before eventually turning it into a vowel. And finally, the Romans gave us the Latin H that we know and recognize today. It's just an incredible visual lineage.
But the sound? Oh wow, the sound was entirely different back then. I really want you to imagine the sheer, spit-flying phonetic power the letter H possessed in the ancient world. The early Anglo-Saxon H was this loud, harsh, throat-clearing guttural sound. Think of the hard, scraping ch sound in the Scottish word lock. Compared to that absolute powerhouse, our modern aspirate is practically a ghost. It's been reduced to a fragile, delicate, and totally unvocalized breath.
Linguists actually call this evolution Grimm's Law. It brilliantly illustrates how these hard, ancient K or C sounds mutated over centuries into the rugged English H. For instance, the ancient Greek cardia and Latin cor eventually softened and shifted into the English heart. And get this, the Greek word for goose, chen, that ancient aspirate mutated through the Germanic gons right into our modern goose. So the English H originally had some serious heavy phonetic muscle behind it.
Section 2. The Great Softening. How the H lost its edge.
So what happened to all that muscle? Well, the main culprit for this softening was the French, specifically the Norman conquest of 1066. See, the invading Normans brought this heavy French linguistic influence over to England, and French speakers absolutely disliked those harsh gutturals. In fact, they habitually just dropped their H's entirely. Because the new ruling class wasn't aspirating, by the 13th century, the sound of the English H became super uncertain. It triggered a centuries-long decay, and by the time we hit the 16th century, its usage varied wildly from the firm, hard rules of the past.
To really understand what the English H has ultimately become, try this quick physical exercise with me. The rule for modern pronunciation is simple. Speak as though you were breathing on glass. Literally, hold your hand right in front of your mouth and whisper a ha. Feel that? It's just air. That mighty, ancient guttural scrape we talked about has been completely stripped of its vocalization. It's been reduced to a mere modification of whatever vowel sound comes right after it.
Section 3. The Silent H Chaos. Dictionary drama.
Now, despite all the historical panic about dropping H's, there's actually a shockingly tiny list of words where the H is officially and legally silent today. We're talking about air, honest, honor, hour, and their formatives. That is practically it. We inherited these silent exceptions directly from Franco-Latin roots, where the H was, for all intents and purposes, already a dead letter.
But what about all the other words? Oh boy, there was fierce,
bitter debate about those. Take the whole herb controversy. Is it herb or herb? For centuries, orthoepists, those are the scholars who study correct pronunciation, fought over words like herb, humble, and hospital. Some dictionaries strictly demanded the H be silent, while others aggressively demanded it be aspirated. This historical tug-of-war is exactly why we still hear such distinct variations between American and British speakers today.
And here is the dirty little secret of the English language, totally exposed by 18th century orthoepist John Walker. He noted that Dr. Samuel Johnson's famous dictionary was, quote, deemed lawful plunder. What that means is subsequent dictionary writers literally just copied Johnson's arbitrary guesses, mistakes and all. They cemented the silent H confusion into linguistic law just by blindly plagiarizing each other's work. And when the standalone H couldn't survive all this confusion on its own, it actually teamed up with other letters.
Section 4. The digraph drama. The WH mystery.
First off, let's just make sure we're clear on our terms here. A digraph is simply two letters united to produce a completely new sound. Think CH, SH, TH, or WH. And let me tell you, these digraphs prove to be the absolute ultimate nightmare for anyone who is trying to learn English pronunciation from scratch.
Which leads us to a seriously maddening historical question. When you see the letters WH in a word, is it pronounced whip or whip? Believe it or not, 18th century scholars like Dr. Louth aggressively insisted that the H should be pronounced before the W simply because that's how the Anglo-Saxons spelled it. He actually wanted everyone walking around saying whip and wheel.
But modern physiology unveils the truth, and it's absolutely fascinating. The phonetic symbol for WH is actually an upside-down W. Why? Because WH is literally just a whistled, unvocalized W. There isn't really a true H sound there at all. The H is just sitting there acting as this visual signal, telling your mouth to blow air without vibrating your vocal cords while you make the W shape. It really seems like the letter H is just hanging on by a phonetic thread, doesn't it?
Section 5. The Future Doom of H. Extinction of an Alphabetical Warrior.
If we look globally, the H is being systematically eradicated. It's been totally enfeebled in Low German tongues, it's almost completely discarded in Latin languages like Italian. In Spanish, it was replaced by J or entirely mutated from the Latin F, so that a word like facere became hacer, where the H is now completely silent. The famous French lexicographer Émile Littré even complained, aspirated H's hurt the chest. As human language becomes more sedate and streamlined over time, the primitive emotional breathiness of the H just feels, well, kind of out of place.
And scholars have seen this coming for a long, long time. An 1880 linguistic treatise offered the stunning prophecy. The hale Old English H has melted into a soft aspirate, and even this is likely to be soon altogether lost. Think about that. Scholars over a century ago were already predicting that the letter H is on a permanent, totally irreversible trajectory toward total phonetic death.
So, I leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Will the letter H disappear entirely from human speech? Are we currently witnessing the dying, silent breaths of the 8th letter of the alphabet? It's incredible to think that every single time you casually drop an H in conversation, you might just be pushing human language one step further into its inevitable silent future. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer of the source material. Keep your curiosity alive, and I will catch you next time.